1 hour. That's how much time is left for the White House to justify the president's temporary travel ban to a federal appeals court. It has until 6 p.m. Eastern to present more arguments to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The question then remains, will the court reinstate the president's executive order? Washington State and Minnesota filed paperwork this morning to support their stance against the travel ban, saying it would unleash chaos. On Friday, U.S. District Judge James Robart ruled that both states had standing to challenge the order, issuing a nationwide restraining order against the immigration ban. This weekend, the president tweeted, "The opinion of this so-called judge, which essentially takes law enforcement away from our country, is ridiculous and will be overturned." Today, Mr. Trump reiterated the need to restrict some immigration during his first visit to CENTCOM.
You've been seeing what's been going on over the last few days. We need strong programs so that people that love us and want to love our country and will end up loving our country are allowed in, not people that want to destroy us and destroy our country. Freedom, security, and justice will prevail.
All right, so this is all coming down. I want to talk process before the merits of this. Kimberly, let's start with you because you worked with the Ninth Circuit Court in California.
I'm still
licking
my
the scars from it. So the process is this:
the
district court had a ruling.
Yeah.
I do think that the government's position, the federal government's position, is going to prevail eventually. But you have a problem potentially in that the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, it's a 3-judge panel. Looks like it's 2 liberals, 1 moderate. If that court does not agree with the Trump administration, then it reverts back to the lower court, or they take it to the Supreme Court, where we have a tie right now, 4-4, because we're waiting for Gorsuch to get confirmed. Do I have the process right?
You 100%. You nailed it. So I'm going to give you an honorary.
I've got an A, gold star on my first day back.
Civil procedure and
You've never
process.
gotten a B. Let's
be honest. Let's be honest. No, so that's the path, right? But to be honest, does anyone really think that the Ninth Circuit is going to agree with the president? No, because that's, I mean, if you just study in terms of the case law and how they come down on certain issues.
Oh, you don't think that they will?
I think that they are not going to agree with President Trump.
Because I think the federal government's position is actually pretty strong, with the leeway and the deference it's given to presidents on these issues.
I think that his position is extremely strong, and I'm telling you that this is the reality and the historical precedent of the Ninth Circuit.
They'll still deny it.
Correct. So therefore, his best chance then is, I don't even think going down to a lower court, is going to be to the Supreme Court, but it's currently the way it's constituted, you would predict, you know, by, again, looking at case law analysis.
He'd probably do better in the Supreme Court.
He has a way better chance in the Supreme Court, and does he need to now wait for his new justice to be confirmed? Does that take this so much further down the road? Because that's really ultimately the best chance that he would have in terms of someone that would actually just look at the law and uphold it and not try to, you know, legislate from the law or let from the bench or let politics get involved.
President Trump talked about this with Bill O'Reilly on Sunday. Let's take a look.
I think it was very smooth. He had 109 people out of hundreds of thousands of travelers, and all we did was vet those people very, very carefully.
You wouldn't do anything differently if you had to do it over again?
Look, in life,
some of your people didn't really know what the order was.
Well, that's not what General Kelly said. General Kelly, who's now Secretary Kelly, he said he totally knew, he was aware of it, and it was very smooth. It was 109 people.
All right, Juan, so either on the merits or the process, where do you think it stands?
Well, I think the way you described it was accurate. I disagree, though, that the case is strong for the president. And the reason I say that is, remember what happened with President Obama, with his order trying to limit implementation of DACA, you know, and
the Dreamers.
Yeah, and the state of Texas said, no, that's going to cause us some injury. And therefore, the court ruled in favor of the state. On the same basis, yes, the president has the authority over immigration, but if it's going to affect the states, and in this case you have Google, you have Apple, you have Uber, and several other, and the state of Washington saying they would suffer injury, I think, therefore, there's a real case to be made, and that's what you're going to hear in the Ninth Circuit.
Surprised you're siding with big business, Juan. Usually
well, I am. I agree with you. I agree with you.
Poor Google. They have it so rough.
Well, 16 states have also filed an amicus brief in support of Washington State.
Wait, with the state's attorneys general. But I wanted to just come to this point very quickly, that it's interesting to me. I think the larger story here, because I imagine this will end up in the Supreme Court, and it'll be a 4-4 split, and therefore President Trump is not going to win on this one. But I think it's so interesting that Congress, which has tried to stay out of President Trump's way, I think they're worried about the populist wave of Republican support for Trump. They want to ride that wave. They want to get what they can out of it. But here come the courts, and the courts are clearly not of the same mind. They're the big obstacle to President Trump at this moment, and that's why Neil Gorsuch, his nominee to the Supreme Court, is now under pressure to say, hey, Donald Trump, you can't go out there and call somebody a so-called judge and undercut the integrity of the judicial branch.
Well, I think the only thing that the nominee has to say is that he will rule based on the Constitution and doesn't have to get into that.
Can I just correct the record from on here? I think the difference between the Obama smackdown by the court and the Trump situation is this deals with national security. Obama was just trying to maybe delay deporting people, but there is major precedent here. The Immigration and Naturalization Act of 1952 gives the president exclusive authority to temporarily suspend the entry of any class of aliens that would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, and Supreme Court precedent. In 1993, the Supreme Court said the president has the power to order a naval blockade to keep Haitians out of the United States. So this judge is an activist judge, and we researched the judge, and we found out in his spare time he does immigration pro bono work for refugees.
What are you talking about?
So there could be a little conflict of interest, and we have him on tape declaring that Black Lives Matter. So this guy may have an axe to grind.
Let me just say, I'll tell you what axe he has to grind. He's a Republican Bush appointee.
So there were some never-Trumpers that also didn't like Trump, too. It doesn't paint the same
you have no respect for him as a judge. I think
that's not true. You mean the so-called judge?
So-called, not in my opinion.
One of my worst.
Just like my so-called guest host right here.
Oh, my gosh.
When I was a press secretary, we had the president had introduced a bill called the Clear Skies Act, and it was to deal with air pollution. And every single time the media would call it the so-called Clear Skies Act, and I would call and I'd complain.
So-called.
It was called the Clear Skies Act.
That's actually the name.
Look, they used that on him. I mean, this is a mild one for Trump. He didn't give him a special name like Little Marco.
That's next.
Trump, this was mild, I think. But, you know, does it really, Juan, does it impugn the integrity of a judge? Judges are political now. They are political. People attacked Scalia. You got, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is a hero of the left. They are political people now. We should stop pretending that they're not. I mean, if you want to know if judges are political, look at it. How many judges have we seen walking down the street with his hoodie over his head because he's being chased by Jesse Waters?
That's right. I remember President Obama attacked the Supreme Court justices to their face at the State of the Union.
And it was outrageous.
Outrageous.
It was
I remember
outrageous.
you thought that was very outrageous.
But one of the things, Kimberly, is that the State Department does make decisions based on region and not religion, but I do think that the state of Washington, when it files, it will claim religion. And part of the reason they're looking at that is one of the things that, from the tweets that President Trump had put out, and also what former Mayor Rudy Giuliani had said about wanting a Muslim ban to be implemented. So now we're a little bit in a situation where it's not clear-cut necessarily.
Right, but nevertheless, they're going to have to look at the document on its face and to determine it and whether or not there is, in fact, a rational basis to support this suspension in travel in the interest of national security. It's certainly within purview of the president. He has an obligation to protect the United States and protect its citizens from threats and terrorist attacks and those that would do us harm, and certainly from radical Islamic jihadists. So he's going to be able to put that forward, that case. I think it's a very strong case. I think if you saw President Obama doing this or President Clinton doing this, it would not be met with the legal ferocity that we have seen.
Well, possibly that's also based on process, though, Jesse, in that you had in the Washington Post and New York Times this weekend senior staff of the White House saying, we will do better. And if those things had been the ducks had been in a row initially, they might not be in this situation.
Part of the chaos that you saw was that the Democrats sent protesters to JFK and LAX to gum up the works. And CNN interviews every sad Iranian who got held up at the airport because they didn't make their flight. So I think that, maybe it wasn't done completely smoothly, but they didn't get a lot of help from their enemies either, which I wouldn't expect.
In what way could it have gone smoothly? In what way could they have released this?
Well, you don't want to warn people because then they pour in before you get the thing done.
Don't you think the same things would have happened? The media would have treated it the same way. They still would have gotten the shots.
No, I think that there are a lot of things, and that I think that they know it too. It's what they were telling the New York Times and Washington Post, that yes, they could have done better. And that's actually when you want to change the subject, you give the media a process story, and you have to make a full pivot. I learned that from someone that I worked with before, and I saw it done. It's not fun to have to say, yeah, we could have done a better job, but it actually is what allows you to turn the conversation around so that you can reset it. And I think that they did that successfully in the New York Times.
Juan could have done a better job during this segment.
Well, they could have done a better job with green cards, obviously, people. That was a terrible mistake. They didn't fully inform their own people about the change coming. They didn't go to the legal authorities in state and intel and justice and get it rolled out in such a way that people would have understood the president's concern about national security.
She's saying it's all about communicating the rollout, which wasn't done as best as it could.
I know the president has come back now,
the law.
Kimberly, and said that he thought the rollout was smooth. I don't agree.
Well, he's saying when you look at the net effect, the impact, 109 people, he said that his Secretary Kelly is behind him. Obviously, it's going to be, I don't think under any circumstances could have been something that would be completely smooth given the nature of it.
No, but there would have been controversy, but it would have been smooth in implementation was my point. And finally, to get back to Jesse's point, if there was a trigger here, Jesse, if there was something that had happened as opposed to the Kentucky
I'll tell you
massacre,
what happened. Do you want to know what happened?
I'm going to tell you something. That's fine. Trump's elected.
So
is that right? So, Jesse, you want a dictator and a king? I don't.
What's being a dictator
about? Because he's just going to issue rulings and put
Obama didn't issue any executive orders. Where have you been the last 8 years?
The court's going to decide on whether the president has the latitude to do this. I think the court
will
say so. Juan thinks he won't. But who are we?